The owner asked me to refinish this Nonskid. This is Kiwigrip, somebody put on in the past, previous to the current owner. It's not the greatest application job in the world. It's pretty inconsistent pattern-wise, not pattern, but texture-wise. Kiwigrip can be a little challenging to roll out in a nice even way. It has the consistency of sour cream out of the package. You can use these funky rollers to roll it out. Not my favorite product, but it's not bad. It does leave a nice grippy texture, to be sure. It's tough on the knees, and it's real easy to end up with a pattern that, I keep saying pattern, but texture that's inconsistent. I found it takes some pretty authoritative rolling to get the kind of texture that I like. And that also makes a mess when you apply it because it splatters. So I do lots of masking and protection when I do it. But this refinish of this Nonskid, it's not going to be anything fancy. I'm going to go over this and sand down the texture so that it can clean up and I can apply a new texture. I'm not going to try to sand it smooth or anything like that. It's just a refresh. Take you over to the other side. Cockpit's kind of a dirty mess, so sanding will help clean that up. Again, the existing texture is kind of all over the place, and I know totally how that can happen with applying this stuff. See a lot of jobs that look like this, but it can be better than this. And there's no doubt that it's effective. It's probably the most effective, easy to apply non-skid product there is. So I'll give it that. And here's what we look like on the port side. A lot to work around up there. That'll be an interesting spot. Again, it's just a refresh, not taking hardware off, not doing any of that stuff. Mostly the pattern here avoids hardware, except for this sailing hardware here. But otherwise it avoids the handrails, it avoids most of the hatches, chain plates, that sort of thing. So there's not a lot to mask around, which is nice. But I'm just trying to give an overall view of what this looks like before I do any work to it. It's dirty, it's kind of messy. Hopefully it'll be better when all is said and done. I sanded this existing Nonskid with 80 grit. I just used a palm sander because it was easy to control. I didn't want to mess up the lines, hurt the gel coat, and I didn't think it needed that much sanding. So what I did is I basically took off the high points, the peaks. It's much smoother than it was. It's hard to tell, but it took off the kind of sharp peaks. Didn't make it completely smooth, but I didn't see any reason to. And then I cleaned it up thoroughly with some solvent to try and get ingrained dirt out, and as much as possible. Can only do so much. Mostly what I wanted to do was even it out so that the new material could stick. It's going to be the same stuff going on top, Kiwigrip, same color. So it'll stick well to this. So I didn't see any reason to prepare it any further than I did. Just even it out. There were places where the previous installer, here's one where there's an overlap visible, a lap mark. And the sanding kind of evened that out so that when I put my layer on, it's not going to be so noticeable. At least that's the plan. Experience would tend to back that up, but we'll find out. Every job is a new challenge. So this isn't that exciting. It doesn't look that different than it did at the beginning, but it is different, I promise. It's just not vastly different. Maybe it should be more different, I don't know, but I think this is more than enough to coat over it. Again, it's mostly smoothed out. Before this was sharp. Now it's all the peaks are worn off. It's kind of like the Appalachian Mountains versus the Rockies. These are worn down now. So it's smoother, ready to put on the new coating. Around to the other side. Same thing over here. And cleaned up the edges. The solvent cleaned up the gel coat quite a bit. There was just kind of surface dirt and oxidation and that kind of thing on it. So now it's nice and clean for a tape line, which is really all I was going for. Shoot you up to the coach roof. I took off the little mast cover so that I could clean and sand around that, around the mast partners. And back around full circle to the cockpit. Again, there's discoloration in here that's not going to come out unless I removed all of this material. Just don't see the reason to. It's cleaned and prepared enough to put more of the same back on. So this is the masking I've done for repainting this Nonskid. And if it looks like overkill, it almost certainly probably is. But this is what I like to do for using Kiwigrip because I find it kind of sloppy to install. You use this kind of silly roller that comes with it. You use this roller. It's like nylon loops, like really heavy kind of Velcro almost. And that's what gives it the texture. And the product is very thick, like sour cream. Comes in these bags. So to roll it out nicely, I find it takes some pressure and some aggressive rolling technique to get a decent texture that's even and looks good. And that tends to splatter. So I've learned over doing this a number of times that it's just easier to mask off all around so that you're not constantly cleaning up splatters and coming back later and finding splatters that you didn't see. With this brand new varnish and everything, I just didn't want to take a risk. I'd rather do a little more prep work and be able to apply it more effectively. So that's what I've done. This is a lot of masking, without a doubt, but it's how I like to do it in this case. So in pretty much everywhere that I could, I have kind of the background masking, like this paper and the extra tape. And then right up next to the Nonskid itself, I have a single piece of tape that actually cuts the line. And that's because one of the endearing qualities of Kiwigrip is that if you leave the tape on overnight while it cures, because the product can be so thick, you can rip the product apart when you tear the tape. So you have to pull the tape when it's wet, which is not something I usually do. But in this case, it's required. So I've set this up so that the tape can be as easily pulled as possible up close to the product. The background paper and tape can stay on there till the next day. It doesn't matter. But hopefully this will be pretty easy to pull the masking immediately next to the Nonskid. That's the goal in any case. Mostly I wanted to protect any varnish, since that's brand new. No reason to make a mess. You can clean this stuff off the gel coat, but it's not easy. And again, it's just worth it to me to mask a little extra given what I know about applying this particular product. I wouldn't mask like this for many other products, but this one, it just makes sense. Same thing on the starboard side. No real differences. The painting order on this boat will be cockpit first. Cockpit's the hardest to do. So I'll do the well, the cockpit sole, and then I'll do the aft seats and pull the tape and work my way forward and around. It's never fun doing the cockpits, but that's what it takes. And then the coach roof, which I can do easily from the side decks. And this boat has various taped borders between sections of Nonskid, so it actually breaks it up nicely and makes it a little easier to apply rather than having to start on one side and continue all the way around to keep a wet edge. So I'm looking forward to getting this stuff on. It's going to make the boat look a lot better. And it's, it's not a huge project to apply this Kiwigrip over this existing Kiwigrip. But I'm going to be grateful to have this done. It's been a lot of masking, and it's just a project I want complete because I want to move on and paint the hull. So this is where we are, ready to paint. I've cleaned the cockpit and the coach roof, and I'll paint those areas. And then when I get off the deck, then I can clean up the side decks as needed. I'll give it a vacuum and a quick wipe down because I have to walk on that. And when you see this next, it'll be all painted. Well, the Nonskid is done. Nice to have this project complete. Really dresses up the decks as expected. I got a little bit ahead of schedule. I finished masking. I had time the same day to get this paint on, so I did. And I've just unmasked everything. All the extra paper, all the extra masking tape that was on here. So we've got it completely revealed. Looks good with the fresh varnish, new paint. I think it came out pretty well. I'm pleased with the texture. I work hard to get the texture the way I like it on this. Takes quite a bit of rolling. First to kind of spread it and apply it, and then to even out the texture in a pleasing way and that doesn't leave air bubbles. Had a disaster on the floor to clean up all the tape and junk that I threw over there. That'll be next. But this looks much better than the old stuff that you saw earlier in the video. Application was okay. It does splatter a lot. I'm certainly not trying to be careless or anything. It's kind of how it goes. I honestly don't know how to apply it the way I do without having the splatter, and that's why I put all the tape and paper everywhere. And it was worth it. Let's go around to the other side. Here's a quick view of how that splatter gets on everything. That's why I put the paper on. It mostly comes when I put the roller in with fresh paint on it and kind of spread it around. I could probably do it without making that mess, but this is what seems to happen, and I find it easier just to try and prevent it at the beginning or deal with it like this rather than fight with it in the process. So this can be walked on delicately. I wore socks when I untaped, but I'm going to stay off it. Works out well with what else I have going on, so this can just sit for a couple days. It's soon going to be covered so that I can work on the hull. There was a lot of stuff to work around here and also up by the Dory vent up forward there. So it was a bit of a challenge working around all that stuff. It would have been nice if that stuff was gone, but it's there, so there you have it. Get you in for a close-up of how the texture comes out. You can certainly make it more aggressive than this. I feel this is plenty aggressive. It's got a nice texture to it. When you can put it on so that it's way spikier, which is more the way it was previously. Whoever put this on before. I don't think it looks good, and it gets dirty, and it's very tough on feet and knees. I think this looks nice, and I think it's plenty effective. It's more effective than the Nonskid with the grit mixed in, which I actually prefer myself, but there's no question that it's not as effective as this for ultimate Nonskid. It's all personal choice and what suits what you need. And in this case, there really wasn't an option to do anything but use the same paint. And that's fine. Looks good. So there's the Nonskid. Project complete.